I'm Scott Gilbey with Grow CX, and I'll be moderating this interesting topic on how digital technologies are improving field service customer experience. And with us, we have Bob Feiner and Laura Laltrello. Bob, please introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Bob Feiner. I'm with Dell Technologies. I'm Senior Vice President in our services business. And I run a team of about 4,000 direct folks and 25,000 around the world, delivering a variety of services, including field services for our customers.
Great, thank you. Laura?
I'm Laura Laltrello. I am the Vice President and General Manager of Honeywell's Building Technology Services business. I have started Honeywell in the past year, and before that I spent 25 years in the technology industry working for IBM, then Lenovo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bob and Laura. Now, the context here is about customer experience in field service, as we know. And just to quickly introduce customer experience, there are 6 general competencies that are well recognized. Customer experience strategy, what do we want to do with it? How is that aligned with the rest of our business? Culture, of course, which is underpinned by employees, employee experience and employee engagement, how the organization is structured to deliver customer experience. Then 3 other aspects, insights, design, and metrics, which are all part of the world of customer experience. Now, having said that, let's get right into our topics. So the first one here is, and Bob, I'll throw this first one at you. What is the value of digital customer experience, and importantly, in the eyes of customers?
Well, I think, if you look in today's world, it's becoming more and more digital. If you look from a consumer experience, we kind of expect that to be in a digital world, whether it's leveraging, entertainment at home, or ordering groceries, or booking air travel when we used to fly. All of that's expected in the digital world, and that just keeps accelerating. And I think customers, now it depends on the use case, but I think a lot of customers, whether they're consumer and commercial, are expecting a similar type of experience where it's easy, it's fast, it gets their problem resolved. And that also means our field service agents are expecting the similar thing, the ability to have that digital experience, whether it's access to knowledge, whether it's being able to order parts, whether it's being able to know what their schedule is. I think that's all proliferating throughout the experience for customers and for our field service agents.
Yeah, in addition to that, Bob, if you think about digital, it's available 24/7. So it doesn't matter what time you need to have interface with a digital platform, it's there for you. It's unlike a human where you've got to schedule it and make time and get together. It sort of appeals to our need for instant gratification or instant answers that we've gotten used to since the internet came about.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's the value in the eyes of the customers. You both mentioned some aspects about employees, whether field agents or technicians getting parts and being scheduled. Now, I wonder, is there a fear component, however, amongst employees and some customers incorporating maybe too many digital tools into the workplace? Laura, would you please comment on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen this both good and bad. A lot of the people in the workforce are thinking, well, if we have digital tools, then I don't need to be there for my customer anymore, which is absolutely not true. I believe that we can use digital to supplement our workforce, be able to help predict what's going to go wrong, be able to prevent things from failing, and still have a human interaction that we need to be able to solve bigger and harder problems for our customers. But I've seen this quite a bit, less so in the technology industry. There's a little bit less resistance, but in the industrial sector, there seems to be a little bit more resistance to transitioning from a human-to-human interaction to a digital interaction.
Makes sense. Bob, you finding the same thing?
Yeah, I think people kind of get worried about automation. They fear that Skynet's going to come together from the Terminator. And, I think we tend to have a view that technology actually enables human progress. And I mean, think about, there were revolutions, 100, 150 years ago because people came out with a new way to weave fabric, right? So so technology is always here and advancing, and people can feel threatened by that. But really what technology enables is take some of the non-value added activity out, whether it's non-value added to you as a worker or as a customer, and free up that time so that either the customer can be serviced that much better, or the field service person or whoever it may be can create more value for the customer. So I think, when we're looking at digital technologies and what they enable, it's really, I think, that human interaction, but then also that ability to really free up that time and take out that non-value added activity.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, previous such technical evolutions. I think of the car, like what happened, the world didn't collapse, the world became faster and easier, in fact. And there's one aspect of employee engagement, maybe onboarding, where previously it would take 15 years to create a field service person. Can you comment on just that aspect of addressing that fear of employees, but really saying, hey, look, we can more easily bring you into the company and the service and put you to work. Laura, any thoughts there?
Sure. I mean, I recently onboarded to Honeywell, so I've been through this process very recently. I mean, it helps a ton when you can understand a little bit better what is created through a repetitive experience of onboarding. You can get trained faster. You can find out who your contacts and colleagues are faster. You truly can get someone up to speed a lot faster and make them more productive than you could in a world where you didn't have these digital tools to help supplement their learning and supplement their knowledge base. So I think in all cases, if we learn to embrace the technology and create technologies that are trusted, because I think that's key to helping a customer experience or an employee experience, the technology has to give what you expect it to give. We can make things faster and simpler while still creating more jobs.
Yeah, you mentioned the word trust. I wrote that down. I think we'll come back to that a bit later in the program. But Bob, onboarding, any comments?
Yeah, I agree with what Laura said, and I also think it's the convenience, right? So if you look at things like if somebody needs to get a new certification or a new skill set, in a lot of cases now, you don't have to go to a physical location for that to happen. You can do that on demand on your schedule or on the employer's schedule or whoever it may be, and it makes it that much more convenient. It makes it faster, and that ability to upskill, I think, just like everything else in the digital world, is going faster and faster and faster.
Exactly. And that brings us to our next topic, and maybe Bob, will stay with you to flesh this one out a little bit. It's this, a lot of people say B2B, B2C converging, but really let's talk about it in terms of the blur between consumer and commercial. Same topic, but just maybe phrased.
Yeah, everything we do now is on a phone, right? So you can order groceries. I never have to leave my house. Think of the convenience of that, where used to have to get in my car, drive to the grocery store and search for what I needed and come back. And that's all done now while I'm sitting in this office. So that blur between consumer and commercial, I think that is just becoming more and more integrated, because what we experience in our consumer lives, we're expecting now in the commercial space in most cases. Now that doesn't apply, I think, in every use case, every situation. But I think there's a lot of that kind of expectation of, I want a mobile app to be able to do what I need to do. I want to be able to track people like I do at Uber. If I have a field tech, I want to be able to see that. I want to see their certifications. I want to see a picture of the person. I think all of those experiences are coming from the consumer world, and we're expecting them more and more in the commercial space.
Sure, I think that was on the way anyway. Pre-pandemic, there was already this blurring between the consumer and the commercial world. And now we find ourselves in our homes during the day being commercial. So Laura, what do you think of that?
I see it a little bit differently. I see it as a shift. So if you think about innovation 100 years ago, a lot of innovations that we have came out of war. And they came out of military. Then the innovation started coming out of the industrial age, started coming out of businesses. So until the era of the smartphone, most innovation started in the corporation and then moved from commercial into consumer. What happened as soon as smartphone came about and the internet came about is that shifted. So the innovation starts in the consumer space and then moves into the business space. And I think you'll start to see things even like social media and the way social media works started to infiltrate the way we do organizational structure and culture design in the commercial space, in addition to the changes that you're seeing in technology. So more than a blur, I think it moved. It moved to where the innovation was beginning, is more starting in consumer now than it is in commercial.
Yeah. And Bob, you might see that even more at Dell than you would at Honeywell. Well, Dell is in both the consumer and the commercial space.
Yeah, absolutely. Now there's still a need, obviously, for, depending on what the situation is for a customer, that they are looking at, okay, I need somebody to come on site. I want them to be here all the time. But a lot of this movement towards leveraging digital technologies, we're seeing that across the different customers that we have. They want things like a cloud console to manage their cloud infrastructure and be able to meter the amount of compute that they use, and do that simply, whether that's through a mobile application or some other type of way of doing it. And that's, again, another consumer application. Think about how you can go check your energy bill or whatever it may be. So absolutely, I think we're seeing that happening throughout the enterprise, in consumer and all the way up through some of our most secure data centers that we operate in.
Makes sense. What do you both feel about the use of the word digital itself? Because what is not digital anymore, right? We make use of the best stuff that's available to us, and we do all the things fast, and we get it done any time of day. Is the word digital overused? Or
I think digital doesn't have a definite enough meaning, because there's everything on digital of scanning a document into a PDF, that is digital. And then there is digital when it comes to actually taking data that you can use to help make and drive decisions. And digital to me is the latter, where you're using compute to help drive and move you forward and make decisions, to do things like prevention and predictive maintenance in our space, but to make recommendations of what you want to buy on Amazon. So that world of digital, I think, is the real world of transformation. But I do agree with you that digital is blurred a bit from everything of, I scanned this document, now it's a PDF, to a true digital platform.
Yeah, actually, thank you. That helps frame that conversation. Thank you, Bob. On that comment about digital, anything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think similar to what Laura said. I mean, I think digital is in a lot of cases everywhere, and everything that we do, and all the transactions. The fact that we're having this conversation virtually is an example of being digital in the digital world, right? So normally we'd be sitting in a room somewhere. So so I think that is continuing to evolve and touch all different aspects of our lives, and what our field service folks experience. And I also agree that more and more so it's becoming about what you do with the data to do better decision making, better optimization of your field force, as an example, better training for your technicians, leveraging the data and the insights from that data to go drive those things, are becoming increasingly more prevalent and more important.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's move on a little bit now. We've talked about, obviously, the data being used in decisions of technology. We think of prescriptive maintenance and the things that are coming down the pike. And I'm wondering if we're over promising in some cases to try and stay ahead of each other, or tripping over each other. And it makes me think of the Ryan Reynolds commercial where he's bought this cell phone company, whatever it wanted, and he says, "Oh, it's still $10 a month, but it's going to be better than it ever has been." And the guy says, "How is it going to be better?" He says, "I have no idea," but he's making that promise, right? And do we see that in our world in field service? And we're just over promising and the expectations are so high. Are we over promising? Laura, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. When you're moving to true predictive maintenance models where you are preventing something from failing, I think in many cases you're not over promising, but the result ends up being you fix something before anyone knew it was broken. And when you do that, there's no evidence, there's no tangible view of something broke, you were there, you fixed it. It's more something was going to break and you prevented it from happening. So you have to find ways to communicate to your customers differently so that they realize the value in being able to prevent disaster versus correcting or cleaning up a disaster. And I think that is one of the things all of us are going to face as we start getting better and better at driving more uptime for our customers on how do you measure the absence of failure versus measuring the cleaning up of it.
Exactly. And as you said at the outset, you are relatively new to Honeywell. Is this a topic that you guys are addressing in the boardroom,
Oh, yeah.
marketing, et cetera?
Absolutely. We are working quite a bit with our customers as we start putting software on top of their industrial platforms so that we can do things like energy optimization, predictive maintenance. And when we do that, we are communicating to them on things that we've prevented from failing or savings that we've gotten because of the fact that we're running their platform much more energy efficiently than they had before.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you raise a good point. How do you charge for something that didn't happen? it's a dilemma. Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I think the technologies are continuing to evolve. When you talk about the topic of over-promising, I think as these technologies evolve, and you look at things like predictive failures and how do you enable that, and how do you get all of that data to enable that. We have things on our consumer devices and on our commercial devices that enable us to kind of predict when a failure is going to happen, or you need to update the latest software that you have on your system so it works more efficiently. And those are always evolving. So I think the customer expectations are always evolving. So it's a question of, did you meet the expectation or exceed the expectation of what a customer had yesterday, or is it today or in the future? And I think that's all through what we're doing around data and leveraging that data, and how do you continue to communicate what your value is? Because when you do have to send somebody on site and they're either there to monitor or to fix or to work with a customer on a longer term solution, what value are they also bringing? Because in today's world, and things are moving so fast, that customers don't have time if people aren't bringing value to them, and they're going to expect that value to be tangible and be able to realize that value much sooner than they probably would have in the past.
Yeah, and it makes me think of the promises, again, that we're chasing, B2B or commercial businesses. We all talk about the behemoths like Amazon and such, and setting standards for e-commerce and such. But isn't it different? Because Amazon is on my phone. I don't, and the truck, and I say hi to the driver if I'm lucky enough to see that person. But otherwise, Amazon doesn't exist except on my phone and on my front doorstep. Whereas in commercial, you're still touching equipment. The technician has to get out of the truck, go to do a safety check, talk to the customer, engage with the assets, and such. So there's that human component.
Absolutely.
You want to just comment on that in terms of the promises that we're making, or are we overlooking the human element?
Well, I think when you need to have some, because not all cases can be solved by just dropping something off and you go fix it yourself, and not everybody wants that experience. But I absolutely think and we're even seeing this, is what people are expecting when you need to send somebody on site to a location. That human relationship becomes even more important, and it's about the customer feeling like the person's knowledgeable and they're going to be able to fix their problem. They'll be able to fix it the first time. They have the right equipment with them or the right parts with them, and they're going to be a pleasant person to interact with. And also in today's world, they're going to follow all the right safety and health protocols, which is probably something we didn't necessarily have 2 years ago. So I think all of those things customers are expecting now. So that human relationship and that human interaction, when you need to have that, is becoming even more emphasized.
Yeah, makes sense. Laura, did you, I see you wanting to interject or add something there.
Yeah, Scott, when we want to send someone on site, or when we go out to call on a customer, we want to be working on their more complex problems. We are working on how do we solve the problems of their business. Like for hotels, how do we help ensure they have visibility that their air is safe and clean so that we can get a healthy hotel and bring customers back to that as a trusted platform. And those problems are things that we're not quite advanced enough to have predictive maintenance or computers solve by themselves. So those interactions are ones that we want to have our teams focused on. And again, I think in many cases, you want the assurance of having a person or a human on site to be able to support the business that you're in. I think it's funny that you brought up the example on Amazon that, Amazon, you just see the trucks, it's on your phone, you don't really see any people. If I'm not mistaken, I think Amazon hires a person every 8 minutes.
Yeah.
It's some ridiculous rate. So if we think about what is digital going to do to the workforce, it's certainly not going to destroy it. It seems that it's going to create more of it than destroy it. And we can start using digital technology to integrate with our workforce to create more jobs, not less.
Yeah, interesting. And a lot of those Amazon jobs are in the customer experience space. We would call those off stage. So if we do journey mapping or this thing called the service blueprint model, the top third of the page, what the customer is doing, and the middle third is maybe you got some salespeople touching the customer, but there is a whole army of folks that are off stage behind the scenes, putting things in boxes, running purchase orders, collecting and servicing that you don't see, and then all the layer of data and systems that has to be managed. So we think of customer experience. Typically, we default to people who are looking at customers, talking, touching, etc. And Bob, you must see that in your world. That whole offstage crowd of people that make the front on stage folks.
Yeah, absolutely. But the whole idea is, at least for us, is thinking about, hey, we want more people in front of the customer and driving those whether it's virtually or physically in front of them, and minimizing what we have to do in the background through automation and digital tools and predictive analytics, so that we minimize what we call kind of the non-front line, and we want to maximize the front line, because the front lines are the ones that drive your customer experience. They're the ones, as we just talked about, have that relationship, whether it's a transactional or a true long-term relationship experience with the customer. And we all know, you get a happy customer, they're probably going to buy from you again. So it's makes great business sense. So we're always looking at, sure, we've got a number of folks behind us that support that customer engagement, but we always want to maximize what we do with our field in front of our customers.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good. If I look back at the topics we've addressed so far, the value of digital customer experience in the eyes of customers, well, they're obviously getting what they need faster and directly, they can have it touch or non-touch. This fear component, and you both addressed nicely that there is a lot of work to be done. Jobs will shift, as they always do during any such evolution, but there's a lot of work to be done. And was it every 8 minutes? Laura, did you say they're hiring?
I think it's every 8 minutes.
Well, so in time with our session here, we've hired a few people. That's amazing. And then that feeds into this blur between consumer and commercial. We talked about this over-promising aspect. Maybe there's one last topic we can spend a few minutes on here is just about expectations. So take all this in its total, and what expectations are we setting for ourselves, for our customers, for our employees? And Bob, I might ask you to address that one first, and expectations of whatever comes to mind, choice, and all the things that we've talked about. Expectations.
Yeah, so I think it varies based off the customer, but I think customer expectations, they're looking for choice. They're looking for, I want to interact with you the way I want to do it, not the way you set me up to do it. So they're really looking for, what that engagement needs to be for their convenience. You know, I talked about the grocery store model earlier. That's so much easier now for me, where I can do other things, and that's a great experience for me. But there's other things too. There are things like being able to remotely deploy or fix systems where you don't have to send somebody on site, and that has implications for a field services organization as well, where as some of these shifts happen, depending on what business model you're in, you may be looking at, okay, how do I redeploy people from having to physically go to a site to actually solving customers remotely through some type of virtual engagement. And it also extends to things like we touched on training and education, and customers want choice there as well. So, you know, in the past, for example, we would have a huge training conference where we'd bring all our folks in who want to come get different Dell certifications and different technologies. Obviously, with COVID, that changed last year, where we didn't do that, but we moved pretty quickly to doing that online, proctoring that online, going through the education virtually, and in a lot of cases on demand for folks. So they could, as I mentioned before, they could choose when they wanted to go take the training. So I think all those expectations continue to change. And what's interesting is, as the customer choices change or evolve, we also have to evolve from a field force, and how we manage our field and how we plan, and what the expectations are going to be for those customers.
Makes total sense. Laura?
It's extremely important that if we're incorporating any type of digital platform, that the platform itself meets the expectations of what the user is trying to do with it. It's the reason that most of the platforms fail is because the expectations weren't met. And if we want to move to a good hybrid integrated models where you have people and you have digital platforms, those digital platforms have to be just as trusted and reliable as the people are at the outcome that the customer is looking for. So I think it's really important to think about, what is your customer going to expect, or what are your employees going to expect from any digital investment or digital platform, and then make sure that that platform is meeting those expectations. Or it will likely not work.
I think you're muted, Scott.
Yeah, there's some background noise here, so I muted just for a few seconds there to keep
It's that digital experience.
Exactly. Read my lips.
Right.
Yeah. So I was saying to Laura that you talked about getting or making sure the platform itself is successful. And it makes me think of years past where the word implementation was a scary thing, where you'd do a 5-year pre-go live and you'd implement large, well-known global systems. Is that still happening, or are we able to implement platforms more quickly in bite-sized pieces, integrate with what we've got going?
Software itself needs to have a long-term vision. Like, you need to know what you want to do long-term with your software platform, but then you can take it, chunk it back, create a minimum viable product to get you started, and then change it as you go, especially as you see the world of software moving from a license to an as-a-service model, where you've got the base platform sitting on a cloud that you can update as regularly as you need to. It helps us drive improvement and iterative change without having to feel like you're stuck with whatever you launched after 5 years of working on it together.
Exactly. It took you 10 years to put it in. It's going to take you 10 years to get it out, kind of thing. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, no, I agree. So look, I think when it comes to software development, particularly what you're using for your field force, I mean, those 5-year projects are a thing of the past. Now, they still exist, but the fact that we're in this digital world and people are expecting things faster and faster and faster, moving to more kind of cloud-based technologies that are leveraging things like mobility applications, enable that speed of transformation to happen. Because if you're running off of a 5-year-old system, you're not going to be able to go solve problems for your customers, as we talked about, and be more competitive versus other folks that aren't anchored to an old infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It makes me think I was I changed my eye doctor a few weeks ago, and I went to ask the previous one to send my records to the new one. a 3D color image of the inside of my eyeball. And he says, okay, well, fax it. that's just total, talk about no expectations. Okay,
Right.
so we've hit on our main topics. Now, is there anything that's been floating in your mind within or outside these particular topics that we wanted to address in the remaining couple of minutes here? Either Bob or Laura, or I think we pretty well thoroughly thrashed it. But is there anything else that you thought we should contribute?
Well, I'll tell you, I think one of the key themes is speed, right? Speed of transformation. And I mean, the history of business is littered with folks who didn't transform fast enough. The classic example is Blockbuster versus Netflix, right? So I think speed, particularly in the digital world, is continuing to be it has to be the focus, because if you don't move fast enough, somebody else is going to move faster than you, and before you know it, you're having challenges retaining customers. So I think that speed of transformation is key.
And I'll add to that at the core of driving speed is trust.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a trusted relationship with your customers, your employees, and you have to build digital platforms that your employees and your customers can trust and rely upon. And if you can get to that trust, that level of trust, it will speed your technology implementation and drive you in a much faster trajectory.
Absolutely. Well, maybe those two words, speed and trust, are a good bullet point or good button to wrap this up. Speed and trust. That's what we're delivering, promising. That's what customers are expecting. And that's, I think it's nice and crisp. So thank you very much. I think in the dying moments here, I'll just say thank you very much again to Bob Feiner, Senior Vice President, Dell Technology Services, and Laura Laltrello, Vice President and General Manager, Building Technology Services of Honeywell. And I'm again Scott Gilbey of Grow CX. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, for having us.
Thanks.